Aloha and welcome to the Carroll Cox Show. Thank you for joining me, and it's a very nice occasion to come back and sit and talk with you and share with you some of the activities in the recent past. What I'm going to talk about today is the grounding of various vessels in the state of Hawaii, in and around Oahu, and what have you. And we don't have that many, but I was told that boats are being pulled from reefs or breaking their moorings at least once a week. Now, I don't have any numbers, official numbers, to back that up, but this was told to me by a salvager who does commercial salvaging for vessels. Now, on February 9th, per the Coast Guard, at approximately 3:30 p.m., a vessel called the Prelude ran aground carrying two passengers and one operator, the captain. And it was run aground on Kaimana Beach, or off Kaimana Beach on the island of Oahu. This is in the same area, basically, that received the impacts of a longline vessel called the Pacific Paradise. The Pacific Paradise is a longline vessel that, quote, ran aground, caught fire, and sat there for at least 2 to 3 months, somewhere near that period of time. And this is coral reef. Now, we know that there's this great debate and discussion about coral reefs and the impacts man is having on them and how we're killing them and impacting them negatively. We're dealing with sewage, global warming, climate change, pollution. So wherever we can save them, and something as easy as when a boat run aground, first of all, try to prevent it and avoid it. But secondly, if it does happen, be more responsive and quick to respond and take it off the reef. But in doing so, you don't want to leave it just floundering there and breaking up and introducing the batteries and the battery contents and the sewage that are aboard the vessel, the fuel tanks. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. As you can see some of the pictures that we have, we spoke with the captain at the time that was operating the vessel, the Prelude, and what he said that his main sail broke, tore up. And so that left him with trying to struggle with a motorboat, the motor, and that motor wasn't strong enough because of the winds that were blowing, and so he found himself on the reef. Well, that was on the 9th of February of this year, 2020. Now, we contacted, and we're going to forgive the DLNR, but the purpose of this is just to bring to light the manner in which we see the response. It just does not seem to be a quick response given and considering the impacts that boats floundering in coral reefs or on coral reefs can present to the coral reef. Not to mention, as it breaks up, fishermen, swimmers, divers, snorkelers, surfers, paddlers can be impacted by this, and this is exactly what we see. This happened in a marine conservation district designated by the DLNR, the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and it's in the Waikiki area. And as you can see, the video that we're going to intersperse in here, we're going to show you just how wonderful it is and how nice it is and why responding timely is so important. It's critical that we do this and not drag our feet and for whatever reason. Some of the stumbling blocks that we witnessed, the state in this case just does not seem to be moving fast enough. And here are some of the problems that present themselves. Well, it appears that if a person owning a boat contacts the DLNR and tell them they've run aground, the DLNR then first tries to or allow them to deal with their insurance. So if they're insured, it becomes a discussion between the owner of the vessel, the insurance company, and the salvager. What we witnessed in this incident, DLNR was just not there on scene or sufficiently enough observing, and it led to a situation where on February 11th, 2020, at approximately 10:26 a.m., I contacted the DLNR by email, asking them what was the status of this vessel. Was it being removed, or had it been removed? And I was told by Mr. Dan Dennison, the senior manager of communications for DLNR, and he told me that the vessel has been removed from the beach by Parker Marine and currently at the Cahie Harbor awaiting disposal. Well, that proved to be not true, because how I was at the time flying a drone in the area documenting that the vessel was still there floundering, breaking up in the reef, on the reef. So why did Mr. Dennison make such statements? We don't know. We don't know. Was it to mislead us? We don't know. But what it does, it begs the question is, how can such a mistake be made if you were there on scene observing? But we're not going to hold that. We did file a complaint with Suzanne Case, Miss Suzanne Case, chairperson of the Department of Land and Natural Resources, Board of Land and Natural Resources, and didn't get a response. Only got a response from Dan Dennison, who in turn just basically blew us off. But we're not going to be too much of a human being in this one. We're really concerned with the impacts on the coral reef and the marine environment, that we won't call it pristine, but we're going as far as talking about preventing the use or prohibiting the use of certain types of sunscreen containing certain elements. Now that's extreme, going to be difficult, but the simple actions that can be taken seem to be missing. And we hope to continue to speak to this and expose this kind of behavior and ask the question, if the owner of the vessel engages, run aground and engages with the insurance company and the salvager, you don't just hand that off to them and let them do their own thing. Now, I'm going to include a video of a boat being salvaged by one of the companies, and this was confirmed that it was the same company that doing the Prelude. Now, the vessel that you see here, we're told that it broke its mooring near Nawili Harbor on Kauai, and it was being towed out of the ocean, up the ramp, the boat ramp, and in turn put on a truck and hauled away. But if you notice, the keel of the boat is still attached, and there are times keels are made of lead. Now, we don't know. We asked questions if this was lead, and it was told to us that it was lead. The keel on this vessel that you see being drugged here was made of lead. We don't have any proof of that, but what you can see is that the manner in which they drugged the boat up deposited two stripes, one where the keel was dragging, and if the keel did have lead, imagine introducing lead to the environment in this fashion. And the fiberglass, both are bad things for the environment and human health and marine resources. So it's rather disturbing. And the debate and the discussion, we know that several days later that we took from pictures from the beach, at least a week went by and the vessel was still there, just rolling and floundering in the coral reef, breaking up. Some people say that it was busting up some of the swimmers. We didn't swim on that date to check on this particular one. But what we can say is that the swimmers reported to me, snorkelers reported to me that they saw the batteries, and the batteries were loose and no caps on the batteries, so therefore allowing the acid in the batteries' contents to be emitted, introduced to the ocean waters or the coral reef. So these are serious issues, hard times for the coral reef. And we don't believe that it should be taken so lightly. And to make a mistake, to say that something and represent that something, the boat had been removed, I still can't wrap my brain around this one. You got the communications manager, senior manager, whose responsibility it is to respond to the public and to respond to the media, like myself. And in turn, you're told one thing, but the truth is escaping them. Why would he represent that the vessel had been pulled off the reef, towed to Kehi Small Boat Harbor, and salvaged? Well, we have pictures of the vessel a week or two later showing the vessel finally, a portion of the vessel, I should say, finally being removed and towed to Kehi Lagoon from Waikiki. Now, some of the things that are impacted here, just look at the video that we've included in here that was shot, that I personally shot in the Marine Conservation District and some while back, and representing the puffer fish, the oeo or the bonefish, and many other fish that octopi and what have you. And so it's a reality that these areas do provide a home, and they look pretty much intact, but they are threatened by the repeated grounding of vessels and allowing them to lay out there. So we're thinking that the DLNR, given the serious nature of this and the impacts, the implications, that we don't have the luxury of sitting back on our thumbs and resting and deciding we'll get to it when the contractor, the salvager, and the insurance company and the boat owner can figure things out. These are our resources. We believe that once a boat runs aground, that every day that it is in place and on the shore or on the ground, that it be witnessed by a state personnel to assess the damages and then penalize those individuals. Now, if you look at some of this information, these pieces of material there, I scratched my head and asked the question, was this boat capable? Was it in good condition? Was it seaworthy? You know, I have my own thoughts and base if you look at some of the wiring and some of the fluids. And they say that there was no fuel or no threats of fuel. But in reality, there was a tank that they quote, say, contained 5 gallons. But there was no leaks. But I spoke with several snorkelers and swimmers and surfers who said that, in fact, and paddlers who who said that they were smelling diesel. Now we're not going to get snagged on that one. But the reality is we need to place a greater emphasis on our response and have a program where give it only so many hours. Now, mind you, there's weather and what have you, but to take the Pacific Paradise, it was there for many, many days, months. And while being told there's no threat, there's no introduction of fuel, when in fact they're having fires, it's burning, the epoxy and all of the materials being burned, and that would possibly introduce dioxins and what have you because fire being present and burning, and the oil, the diesel, who knows what was being created or generated from that area. So really concerning. It really is. So I hope that you can enjoy some of this and appreciate the fact that this is a real fragile and real area, an area that needs protection. Bearing the name Marine Conservation District, that says it all right there. So they should treat it as such, respond to it as such, because it is an important part of the ecosystem here in Hawaii. And we must put an end to this loosely operated practice that we see, where hands off, allowing, if you look at the Kauai one, that boat being drug out, lead being deposited, if in fact the keel is made of lead. We don't have any way of knowing, but we were told that it was lead from the people that were there witnessing it, and that now if we don't know, if we weren't able to confirm, but something was being deposited. And that's what we want to see minimized. We want to see contractors being held accountable with the stricter conditions of operating, and not being allowed to just behave in this fashion. And some of the complaints we're getting from various salvagers or whatever, people will lowball, and that then diminishes the quality of response or treatment of or removal of this. Now, we got a call, and I got photographs of the boat in the vessel off Kaimana on February this month. Now, this vessel is pulling, and you can see the rope pulling and just pull part of the vessel over the reef. It had floaters, but it's still some report that it was snapping, and it just didn't look right to behave in such a way that hooking a rope and pulling a portion of a vessel off the reef and breaking it up. Those were the allegations. We didn't see that from our vantage point, but we did see them hook it up, take a portion, and I spoke to one of the salvage employees who said they took a portion of the boat and was going to truck it to the lagoon area. But the pictures that you see here, there's batteries. These batteries were originated on the board, that vessel. So it was something that we should never have to witness again, and in the manner in which it was handled. And we don't know, there's no mentioning of violations. So we don't really know what transpired with DLNR, but we do believe that the DLNR should reassess its approach and institute a practice where when there's a vessel that goes aground, whenever the workers are there or the salvage company is there, so should be a representative from the DLNR to monitor and to make compensation to the DLNR for the damages, because these are the people's resources. Accidents happen, but when accidents happen in a fashion that it becomes a burden on the people's resources and threatens those resources, then we should be able to receive some kind of a monies or reimbursement for the loss of the reef. In some instances, if you dropped an anchor off Maui in certain areas, I've known that they've issued citations for anchoring unauthorized, breaking because it breaks a coral. So why would you just walk away or not go to see this area or have complete eyes watching a vigilant effort to protect this and monitor while this vessel is in the water? So I don't know what the real solution is, but we cannot continue to operate this way, and we should not operate this way. So thank you for joining me on the Carroll Cox Show. I appreciate you, and as always, a pleasure trying to share with you. We'll continue to follow this subject and this incident and the others that occur. If you see anything, say something. If you see anything and you want to get involved, or take down the name, the notes, watch out, take a good video and send it to carroll@carrollcox.com or EnviroWatch at envirowatch.org, ENVIROWATCH at ENVIROWATCH.org. And we'll pick it up and see what we can do and bring some light to this practice, this horrible practice of handing it off, watching the vessel. Now, imagine, Waikiki is the flagship of the industry of tourism. And how are we able to tolerate the presence of a boat that run aground? What does that say? And the people potentially being exposed to shards of fiberglass, materials or particles or pieces of the vessel that have broken off. And they have the children and swimming and what have you. Imagine that. What message is that being sent to? And what concerns? Should we tolerate such practice? I suspect it would be, if you look in the dictionary, you'd find it where it's just lazy and irresponsible. So anyway, thank you again for joining me, and I appreciate your help on these issues, and thanks for calling, and because it was, once again, someone at the shoreline, like yourself, that called us to alert us to what you were seeing and took pictures and what have you, and we appreciate that. Let's keep going. Aloha.